Imagine, the year is 1588. A huge fleet of warships, the Spanish Armada, is heading towards the shores of England, a country in terror. In a small town, a woman's child is born early. She's completely terrified by the fear of the coming attack. She gives birth to a son, Thomas Hobbes, who later said about this moment, "My mother gave birth to twins, me and fear." This event, a cosmic clash of personal fate and national crisis, shaped the direction of his entire life's work. It etched a basic truth onto his being. The universe can be a scary place, and humanity's deepest urge is a desperate search for security. For Hobbes, fear wasn't just an emotion, it was a major force of nature, like gravity, shaping human behavior and society. This deep feeling of insecurity stayed with Hobbes his whole life. As an individual, he saw the English Civil War, a chaotic and brutal time when the fabric of society fell apart. Neighbors turned against each other, and the constant threat of violent death became an everyday reality. This wasn't some abstract philosophical problem for him. It was the world outside his window. He saw firsthand what happens when authority breaks down and every person has to fight for themselves. This experience solidified his thinking that humans, if left to their own devices, are like particles in a vacuum, colliding, competing, and creating chaos. His quest was to find a political science, a set of universal rules that could bring order to this human turmoil and protect individuals from their own worst habits. This personal history is key to understanding Hobbes's entire political universe. He wasn't some aspiring dictator, eager to take away people's rights for the sake of power. Instead, he was like a cosmic engineer, trying to design a system that could protect fragile human lives from the constant, pressing threat of destruction. He saw the chaos of his time and understood it as a problem that needed a scientific solution. Just as Galileo studied the movement of planets to understand the sky, Hobbes decided to study the movement of human desires and fears to understand society. His goal was to create a blueprint for a state that could act as a strong wall against the ever-present shadow of fear, the one that had haunted him since his birth. In Hobbes's philosophy, everything starts with the individual. He saw every human as a self-contained system, driven by two basic opposing forces: inclination and aversion. We are drawn to things that bring us joy, comfort, and security, what he called inclination. At the same time, we pull away from things that bring us pain, sorrow, and most of all death, what he called aversion. This simple, almost mechanical view of human nature was revolutionary. It suggested that we aren't born naturally social or political creatures. Instead, we are fundamentally self-interested. Each of us is engaged in a relentless pursuit of power, not for its own sake, but as a means to gain more happiness and keep pain away. He believed this never-ending quest was the root of all human conflict. So now, let's do a thought experiment, just like Hobbes did. Imagine a world where there's no government, no police, no laws, no rules of any kind. He called this imaginary situation the state of nature. In this world, every person has complete freedom or a natural right to do whatever they think is necessary to survive. If you need food, you can take it. If you feel threatened by someone, you can remove them. You are your own judge, jury, and executioner for your actions. This might seem like the greatest freedom, a paradise of personal freedom where no one can tell you what to do. But Hobbes asks us to look more closely at the consequences of such a universe. Just think. In this state of nature, you are free to do anything, but so is everyone else. Someone stronger than you is free to take your food. A group of people is free to take your shelter. And because resources like food, land, and security are limited, life becomes a constant, brutal competition. Everyone is a potential threat to everyone else. There can be no trust, no cooperation, no industry, and no progress. Why would you bother planting crops if you have no guarantee that you will be the one to harvest them? Why would you build a house if a stronger group could just take it from you? Hobbes argued that this condition leads to a war of all against all. This state of war isn't necessarily about constant fighting, but about the constant fear of fighting. It's that constant unease that at any moment your life could end violently. In one of the most famous passages written in political philosophy, Hobbes described life in this state of nature as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. It's a life lived under the shadow of death, where the basic human desire to avoid pain is constantly thwarted. Imagine a planetary system without the gravitational pull of a central star. The planets would fly off randomly, collide, and break apart. This is Hobbes's vision of humanity without a central authority to bind it together. So, the complete freedom of the state of nature is a trap. It's a freedom that ultimately guarantees insecurity. You are free from laws, but you are enslaved by fear. You are free to pursue your desires, but you have no security in enjoying them. For Hobbes, a rational, pleasure-seeking, and pain-avoiding creature would inevitably realize that this is a terrible deal. The fear of a violent death, which is the greatest pain, will outweigh the joy of complete, uncontrolled freedom. Reason itself will tell you that there must be a better way. This powerful realization is the catalyst for humanity's next big step, the formation of society. So, when the scary truth of the state of nature hits, what's a smart person supposed to do? Hobbes suggested that people use their brains to find a way out. They come together and make a deal, a big agreement he called the social contract. This contract isn't a piece of paper everyone signs. Instead, it's a shared understanding, an agreement among everyone. Each person looks at their neighbor and basically says, "I'll give up my natural right to do whatever I want, like stealing from you or hurting you, if you also give up your natural right to do the same to me." It's a group surrender of the wild freedom of the state of nature, and in return, you get something super valuable: safety. This is a really important moment in human history. Individuals agree to give their personal power to a third party, either one ruler or a group of leaders. This new thing, which Hobbes called the sovereign, is created by the contract, but it's not actually part of the contract. Think of it this way. A group of people in an apartment building agree to hire a security guard. The agreement is among the residents, not between the residents and the guard. This is super important because it means the sovereign is above the contract and has total power to make sure it's followed. People create a power that's even bigger than themselves, so they can protect themselves from themselves. This made-up thing, this powerful state, Hobbes called it the Leviathan. By entering this contract, people trade most of their freedoms for a big guarantee: the protection of their lives. The sovereign's main and most important job is to keep things peaceful and orderly, so society doesn't fall back into that war of everyone against everyone. To do this, the sovereign needs to have total power. It needs the power to make laws, settle arguments, and punish those who break the rules. For Hobbes, dividing this power was just asking for trouble. It would lead to the kind of fighting and civil war he had seen. Power, like the sun's gravity, needs to be in one place to keep the system stable and stop things from flying off into space. However, there's one super important right that people don't give up and can't give up: the right to protect themselves. After all, the whole point of creating the Leviathan was to protect their lives. So, if the sovereign directly threatens your life, for example, by ordering you to be executed for no good reason, the contract is broken. At that moment, you're back in the state of nature concerning the sovereign, and you have the right to defend yourself. This is the ultimate safety valve in Hobbes's system. The sovereign's power is absolute, but its right to rule depends on certain things. It exists to keep individuals safe, and if it fails at that basic duty, its power goes away. So, if we live under an all-powerful ruler, does that mean we have no freedom at all? Not at all. Hobbes had a very clear and practical idea of what freedom means. For him, freedom is simply where the law is quiet. Think of the law like a series of walls or channels built to guide the flow of water. The water is free to go anywhere inside the channels, but it's not free to break through the walls. In the same way, people are free to do anything the ruler hasn't forbidden by law. The ruler might make laws about paying taxes, serving in the army, or not committing murder. In those areas, you don't have the freedom to disobey. But the ruler can't control every single part of your life, and wouldn't want to. There won't be laws telling you what to eat for breakfast, who to be friends with, what job to choose, or how to spend your free time. In all these huge parts of life, you are completely free to act as you wish. For example, the law stops you from stealing your neighbor's car. And in this, your freedom is limited for the sake of order. However, there won't be a law stopping you from buying a car, painting it any color you like, and driving it wherever you want, as long as you follow traffic laws. that's your freedom. This is a practical, safe freedom, not the scary, messy freedom of the state of nature. This brings us to an amazing idea that at first seems like a puzzle. Hobbes is both one of history's greatest supporters of individual rights and one of its greatest supporters of absolute power. How can this be? The answer lies in his main goal. His whole argument for an absolute ruler is based on a deep care for the individual. He doesn't argue for a powerful state because he likes power, but because he believes it's the only way to protect the individual from harm. The absolute power of the Leviathan isn't the enemy of the individual. It's the individual's greatest creation, designed only to ensure a peaceful and comfortable life. In the end, Hobbes asks us to pick between two kinds of freedom. On one side, there's the complete natural freedom of the state of nature, which comes with constant fear and a high chance of a short, violent life. On the other side, there's civil freedom under a ruler, where we give up the freedom to harm others for the freedom from being harmed. For Hobbes, the choice was clear. A powerful, even absolute ruler isn't against the needs of the individual, but is the only logical answer to them. The Leviathan, despite its huge power, is ultimately a helper. It's the great protector we create to save us from the deep